If the Sandman universe did something right, it was definitely the incorporation of the Greek mythos with age-old lore of gods and goddesses. While we definitely see no might Zeus or Poseidon in action, our Dream King Morpheus was absolutely no less. But nothing stood close to the tragic tale of Orpheus and how he had to spend thousands of years as a severed head. Well, at the cost of sounding a little harsh, the boy dug his own grave for most part of his lore, but watching the Sisters of the Frenzy going ham on him was truly a dark scene. Now, this particular cult has barely been mentioned more than once or twice in the series, so without wasting another moment, let's discuss what ideology this raging cult of women stands for in the Sandman mythos. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who are the Sisters of the Frenzy? The Maenads, who are also known as the Sisters of the Frenzy, are actually followers of Dionysus, who is the Greek god of wine, madness, and wild revelry. Drawn straight from mythology, they're known for entering trance-like states before giving themselves over to chaotic dances, mystical trances, ritualistic savagery, and frenzied ecstasy during bacchanalian celebrations. In the Sandman Netflix series, the Maenads are portrayed as mortal women completely devoted to Dionysus. But when they're in his grip, they don't behave like normal people, as they're overtaken by something more primal, beyond mortal understanding, as their movements are wild, their laughter unhinged, and their eyes seem to look through you, as if they're not entirely present. Dressed in flowing or sometimes tattered robes with ivy crowns tangled in their hair, they dance, scream, and whirl like they've been set on fire from the inside out. The Sisters of the Frenzy are only comprised of young, wild, and sensual women, often depicted in light, ritualistic attire, sometimes adorned with animal skins or ivory wreaths. In the series, they retain this primitive and captivating allure, with costumes that evoke antiquity, while fitting the series' visual aesthetic. Their appearance is marked by raw sensuality and tribal energy, further reinforcing their role as devoted servants to Dionysus. What role do they play in Orpheus' tragic lore? I think everyone is well versed in the tragic tale of Orpheus. He was the guy who journeyed to the underworld to get his newlywed wife back from Hades and Persephone after she got stung by a snake on their wedding night. Orpheus had requested Dream to retrieve his wife for him, but when his father refused, he chose to give up his mortality and go in search of his beloved, Eurydice. Eventually, Orpheus found himself before Hades and Persephone, and with the power of his music, he convinced them to let Eurydice return to the world of the living. But it was under one condition, that during their journey back, he must not look at her. Unfortunately, just when Orpheus had made it almost to the end, he was haunted by the doubt that Hades might be deceiving him, and so turned around just as they were about to reach the surface. In an instant, Eurydice was torn away from him and returned forever to the realm of the dead. Depressed for not having managed to save Eurydice, Orpheus then wandered around the world. Eventually, his mother Calliope told him that she had left Morpheus for not having helped her with Eurydice. She also warned him that Dionysus' maidens were looking for him and wanted to kill him. But Orpheus wanted to die and told her that he didn't care. Calliope begged him not to do that, but Orpheus walked away and went deeper into the forest, knowing that they would tear him apart, as he was ready to end his life, which, according to him, held no value without Eurydice. So as night fell, the Maenads finally found him during one of their classic frenzied states, and pounced upon Orpheus, mutilating and dismembering him. After tearing his bones out of his flesh, the Sisters of Frenzy then threw Orpheus' head into the river that went to the sea, and finally ended up on a beach. However, due to the deal he made with death, Orpheus didn't die, and on the contrary remained conscious like a severed head. When Morpheus found him, Orpheus begged for death, but his father refused and told him that this had been the consequence of his actions, and that soon the priests of the island he was on would come for him, and left Orpheus, who was screaming for him to kill him. Now Orpheus knew that if his father killed him, Morpheus would also be signing a death treaty for himself. Well, things finally came full circle when Dream had to reach out to Orpheus to locate his brother Destruction, who had abdicated his realm 300 years ago. Dream knew that in exchange for the location, he would owe his son a boon, and Orpheus' only wish was to die. Even then, Dream went to his son just to make Delirium happy and keep his promise of helping her find their brother. In the end, after seeking his son's help in exchange for a boon, Orpheus asked Dream to grant him the gift of death, and Dream finally killed Orpheus, even though he didn't wish to. Even though he was the reason for his father's undoing, Orpheus lived a horrifying life, especially after the Maenads ran him down, thus forcing him to feel every consequence of his decision for thousands of years. The Maenads and their lore in Greek mythology. So in Greek mythology, Maenads were the wild, ecstatic female followers of Dionysus, the god of wine, madness, and revelry. Their name literally means the raving ones, and they were the most devoted members of his roaming band of worshippers, known as the Theasus. Now, cultist rites associated with the worship of the Greek god of wine, Dionysus, were mostly characterized by maniacal dancing to the sound of loud music and crashing cymbals, in which the revelers, called bacchantes, whirled, screamed, became drunk, and incited one another to greater and greater ecstasy. The goal was basically to achieve a state of enthusiasm in which the celebrants' souls were temporarily freed from their earthly bodies, and were able to commune with Bacchus or Dionysus in order to gain a glimpse or a preparation for what they would someday experience in eternity. The rite climaxed in a performance of frenzied feats of strength and madness, such as uprooting trees and tearing a bull apart with their bare hands, as it was the symbol of Dionysus, which was an act called sparagmos, while eating its flesh raw was an act called omophagia. This latter rite was a sacrament, akin to communion, in which the participants assumed the strength and character of the god by symbolically eating the raw flesh and drinking the blood of his symbolic incarnation. Having symbolically eaten his body and drunk his blood, the celebrants became possessed by Dionysus. But Maenads are found in later references as priestesses of the Dionysian cult. In the 3rd century BCE, when the city of Magnesia wanted to establish a Maenadic cult in honor of Dionysus, the Delphic oracle bade them go to the holy plain of Thebes to fetch Maenads from the race of Cadmean Ino, as they could bring Maenadic rites and noble customs to establish troops of Bacchus in the city. In Roman mythology, the Maenads were also called Bacchae, Bassarids, or Bacchantes, reflecting the influence of Bacchus, the Roman version of Dionysus, who was often shown wearing a fox-skin cloak called a bassaris. Maenads were said to enter a state of divine frenzy, stirred by music, dance, and wine. Dressed in fawn skins and crowned with ivy, they carried a thyrsus, which was a tall staff wrapped in vines and topped with a pine cone. They often adorned themselves with snakes and even wore bull helmets in honor of their god. In myth, these women were known not only for their joy and wildness, but also for their violent intensity. They were once described as Dionysus' nurses on Mount Nysa, so frenzied that even King Lycurgus couldn't control them, chasing them through the hills and striking them down in horror. Different regions gave them different names. In Macedon they were called Mimolones and Clodones, which are words tied to the art of spinning, but it also referred to their role as fierce virgin warrior women who defended their lands. However, in southern Greece, they were known by other names like Thyades, Pontniades, or Bassarides. But their identities remained the same, as they were always depicted as women transformed by divine madness and dancing through forests under the spell of Dionysus. The Maenads also appear in famous tragedies. In Euripides' The Bacchae, the women of Thebes, after being driven mad by Dionysus, tear King Pentheus limb from limb when he tries to outlaw their rites. Tragically, it was his own mother, Agave, who rips off his head, believing it was that of a lion. Another famous victim of the Maenads was of course Orpheus, the grieving musician, who after losing his wife refused to play for the frenzied women, and they killed him for it. Moreover, ancient vases and drinking vessels often show scenes of Maenads dancing with Dionysus, lost in ecstatic movement, sometimes attacking wild animals or pulling trees from the ground. These images capture a powerful and unpredictable spirit they embodied. Anyway, that's really all you need to know about the Raging Sisters of the Frenzy, but if you really want us to go deeper into the Greek mythos of this cult, that's definitely a whole other video for another day. So let us know about your thoughts and opinions in the comment box below.